How the heck do I discover all the limiting beliefs that are interfering with my success in life? Well, glad you asked, because that's exactly the topic that I'm going to explore in this video. By the end of this video, you're going to know 2 ways that you can uncover limiting beliefs that are interfering with your success. Now, why is this important? You see, we all have desires that we want to fulfill, and that's true whether they are material desires or spiritual desires. And if you try to suppress your desires because you think that having desires is bad or unspiritual, or because you think it's impossible for you to fulfill them, or whatever the case may be, that is not a good approach, because that just keeps the desires there in an unfulfilled state, and therefore you are not making any progress. So satisfying desires is important because you want to relieve yourself of those desires, and suppressing does not work. So the first most important step is to have clarity about what you want. And if you don't even know where to begin to get clarity on what you want, then I recommend that you watch the video that I've created on that topic, and I'll provide a link in the description below. Now, once you know what you want, the next step is to release those limiting beliefs that are interfering with the fulfillment of that desire. And that's why discovering what those limiting beliefs are is so important. Because if you put your attention on the thing that you want, then your energy is going to that. However, what happens most of the time is that these limiting beliefs come up and they interfere, so that instead of your energy or your attention going to what you want, your energy goes to those limiting beliefs. So your energy doesn't actually get to the thing that you want, even though you're trying to put attention on it. And this is why many people get hung up, because they have all of these limiting beliefs that are interfering with the fulfillment of their desire. Now, if those beliefs remain unconscious, then it can be quite difficult to make significant progress in fulfilling the desire. So making those limiting beliefs conscious is an important and useful step in this process. Now, I should say that many people are uncomfortable with this because they have a superficial understanding of the law of attention. Again, the law of attention is that whatever you put your attention on, that's where your energy goes. So people think that if they give any attention to their limiting beliefs, then they're giving their energy to the limiting beliefs. Well, yes, that's true. However, what they fail to understand is that by keeping them unconscious, then unconsciously their energy, their attention is constantly, chronically being given to those limiting beliefs. So to make it conscious does give some energy to the limiting belief, but it's an important step in the process of releasing that, so that it will no longer be siphoning the energy. So don't be afraid to make the limiting beliefs conscious. Again, many people are uncomfortable with this. They refuse to make a list of them. But if you fail to do so, then your energy will continue to be siphoned off by them unconsciously. So don't be afraid. It's perfectly fine. Nothing bad is going to happen because you simply make them conscious. All of the trouble is because they are unconscious, and all your energy is being siphoned off to those unconscious limiting beliefs. Okay, so here's what you can do. This is the first method for uncovering those limiting beliefs. You're going to put your attention purposefully on a desire that you have. So you have 1, 2, possibly 3 desires that you're working with right now. This is what I recommend. No more than 3 at any time, because otherwise you're your attention is too diluted, your energy is insufficient in order to properly satisfy any of those desires. So 1, 2, maximum 3. Now for each one of those, each day, consciously put attention on it. So hopefully you have them written out. So let's say that one of my desires is to have $1,000,000. So I'm going to put my attention on that. I'm going to maybe imagine what it would be like to have $1,000,000. I'm just going to imagine that. I'm going to imagine what it would be like for me to have $1,000,000. And as I do that, and I'm thinking to myself, in my imagination, I have $1,000,000. And as I imagine that, I notice what are the thoughts that come up. Because I can promise you that there are some limiting beliefs in there, and you can just notice them if you pay attention. So as I'm paying attention, I have $1,000,000. Then I might notice, well, I start to think, only dishonest people have $1,000,000. Wow, interesting. Write it down. Only dishonest people have $1,000,000. Pay attention to this again. I have $1,000,000. What comes up? I have $1,000,000. I'm imagining myself having $1,000,000. I say, I'm no good with money. Oh, wow. Write it down. I'm no good with money. Again, pay attention. I have $1,000,000. I'm imagining I have $1,000,000. And what comes up? I say, well, I'd have to work too hard. Aha, great. I'd have to work too hard to have $1,000,000. See, all of these limiting beliefs will come up. They will surface. Imagine it again. I have $1,000,000. If I have $1,000,000, then people will be bothering me all the time, asking for money. Write it down. See, any of these limiting beliefs can be discovered in this way. It's not that complex or difficult. Like many things, we often tend to dismiss the obvious and simple because we say, well, that couldn't work. It's too obvious and too simple. That couldn't work. And the thing is, it won't work if you don't do it. But if you do it, I promise you, it will work. So every day, imagine, put your attention on each of the desires that you're working with. Imagine it. Tell yourself, in my imagination, this is true. In my imagination, I have this. In my imagination, this is my experience. And then just notice, what are the limiting beliefs that come up? Just pay attention to those thoughts that are there. And again, many people are uncomfortable doing this because they think, as I said, that if they give their attention to those, then they're giving their energy to them, and that's going to be problematic for them. But again, if you have those limiting beliefs, then they're already getting your attention. But by making them conscious, you can let them go. But you have to make them conscious first. So don't be afraid. Do not be afraid to write them down. Nothing bad will happen to you. All of the trouble is because they're unconscious and you're unconsciously, compulsively giving energy to them. So make them conscious so that you can let them go. You will be glad that you've done so. Also, sometimes people think that they shouldn't because they're too spiritually evolved. They know better. They say, I don't really believe that. I'm too spiritual to believe that. I know that that's not really true. That's just a silly thought. But the thing is that you can tell yourself that, but if the belief is there, the belief is there. It doesn't matter what you think you know. So don't be too prideful in order to help yourself out. Just be humble and admit if you have the beliefs. It's okay. Nobody's judging you except you. Yeah, other people are judging you too, but who cares? Be free. Be free. Free yourself. Okay, so that's the first method. Second method. You can use either of these. You can use both of them in combination to discover more things. Okay, this is the second method. So you notice what your belief is, what your desire is. Okay, so you're going to reference your desire, each of the desires that you're working with. So if one of my desires, again, is I have $1 million, I'm going to pay attention to that. And I'm going to notice I'm going to ask myself this question. What would a person have to believe in order to have the experience that I presently have relative to that desire? Okay. In other words, I want to have $1 million. Presently, I know my current situation, right? So I say, okay, my current situation is such and such, where I don't have $1 million. I desire to have $1 million. What would a person have to believe in order to have the experience that I have presently relative to what I do want? So what would a person have to believe? So you imagine some other person who has the experience that you have. What would that person have to believe? You know, maybe they'd have to believe I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not creative enough. I'm not a successful person. Life is too hard. In order to have that level of success, I would have to sacrifice things that are important to me. You can just keep going. All of the things that a person would have to believe. So you ask yourself that. What would a person have to believe in order to have this experience relative to the experience that I do want? Write them all down. So, like I said, you can use one of these methods or both of these methods. These are not the only methods for discovering what the limiting beliefs are, but these are two very powerful, very simple, very effective methods that are really accessible. And if you use either of them or both of them together, you will get good results. Now, once you've determined what those limiting beliefs are, of course, the next step is to let them go. And I'm not going to cover that in detail in this video. This video is just focused on how to discover what those limiting beliefs are. But I will briefly say that your intention is very, very powerful. So if you want one very simple yet very powerful method that you can use to release limiting beliefs, it is this: use your intention. You might have to do this repeatedly. You might only need to do it once. But when you use it, you can have success if you persist. And it is simply to have the intention: I choose to let go of this belief now and forever. I choose to let go of this belief now and forever. I choose to discover a new way of understanding and seeing my life. Just set that intention and be really clear about it. And then you can just be watchful in your life. If that belief surfaces, you'll notice it, and you can again set that intention. You can just acknowledge there is that belief, and I choose now to completely release that belief now and forever. I choose to see and experience and perceive life in a new way which gives better results for everybody's greatest good. When you work with that, you will see results. It's not the only method for releasing limiting beliefs. It is one that is very simple. And if you are persistent with it, it can work. So that's what I wanted to share with you in this video. And I'll just sign off by mentioning that if you have not yet gotten the free ebook that I have for you on my website, then I encourage you to check that out. That is at joeylott.com. And that covers 5 of the fundamental laws of creation, one of which is the law of attention, which I did talk about in this video. If you want to learn more about that and the 4 other laws, then you can go to joeylott.com and sign up there, and you'll get that book instantly. And also, if you are interested in a comprehensive program and my support in helping you to achieve the things that you want to achieve in your life and understand these important principles and put them into practice in your life so that you can get better results, then you may be interested in the Manifesting Truth program, which is a paid program that I offer. And you can learn more about that by going to joeylott.com/manifesting-truth. And I'll provide the link to that in the description below. So that's all for now. Blessings to you. Bye for now.